So I get a lot of emails and messages from people who are trying to make a long distance relationship work. They seem to be under the impression that long distance is causing all of the problems and causing the relationship to fall down a path that they don't want to fall down. And when it comes to repairing and growing a relationship, and especially as a relationship does start to head in the wrong direction, it can feel like long distance is causing all the problems. But that is not true. In this video, I'm going to break down why long distance isn't the problem that you think it is. And I'm also going to talk about the main steps to not only repair, but grow a long distance relationship long term. So I get it. There's this Hollywood idea of long distance relationships not working out. You know, it's a kind of a common trope, right? This idea that distance is the problem in relationships. Someone moves to a different city and suddenly the relationship falls apart, and then maybe in 30 years' time, their lives change and they manage to be in the same city at the same time again and everything's fine. This is a very common story that we tell ourselves, that long distance is a problem. But the truth is that relationships are what you make them. If you let the distance be the problem, then it will become the problem. If you don't let the distance become the problem, if you lean into the distance and actually use it to work to your advantage, you can turn a long distance relationship into a thriving relationship more than someone who lives in the same city. You know, I've worked with thousands of relationships, and there are so many excuses that people give themselves to not make a relationship work. I've seen some relationships that have fallen apart where they've lived 24/7 with each other. I've seen relationships fall apart where they've been barely in contact and thousands of miles away. But I've also seen relationships thrive when they live with each other 24/7. I've also seen relationships thrive when they have thousands of miles distance between them. So yes, long distance comes with its own unique challenges and ways to navigate it, but this doesn't mean that long distance is the problem. You know, the biggest mistake that people make is having this idea that communication over long distance is a problem. That if you're not constantly having day in, day out conversations, then the relationship is going to drift apart. And this is one of the biggest mistakes to fall for, is by falling for this myth that you need to have constant communication. The thing is that quantity of communication does not have an impact on your relationship. This is the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to repair a relationship, is that they think they need to be constantly in their partner's mind, constantly having these conversations and constant communication in order to repair a relationship. But it's not. It's quality over quantity of communication. And this is why, when it comes to long distance relationships, leading with emotional precision, actual quality communication is more important than quantity of communication, than performative communication. So the first step really is understanding there's a difference between low value communication and high value communication. You know, low value communication can be, check-in texts. Like, this may feel like the right thing to do, but if you're only communicating with, how you doing? What's going on? How's things? If you're just constantly having low value communication, this is not really going to help repair and build and grow a relationship. Whereas high value communication, being able to provide conversations with true value. And this is where so many people mess up, because when they think of value in communication, they think of the things that are valuable to them, that of their perspective, what they want from a conversation, rather than cultivating an environment that provides high value for both. And when we think of high value communication, this is the three main elements of very high standard relationships. And I won't go too much into this because a lot of this is in the boot camp. So if you do want to dig deeper into this, then do make sure you join the boot camp, which I'll talk about a little later on. But the three main elements of healthy, strong, high-value relationships are emotional safety, intellectual intimacy, and goal synergy. The foundation of everything is emotional safety. So if you are in a long-distance relationship, making sure that you're able to provide a high level of emotional safety within the relationship through your communication, being able to cultivate an environment where your partner can feel safe expressing themselves, their feelings, without any negative repercussions. But then there's also intellectual intimacy. And this is a very high level of growth, development, and ideas to the relationship. And this is being able to provide an alternate perspective that is able to help support the growth of the relationship, but both of you as individuals as well. And then finally, there's goal synergy, which is being able to synthesize both your goals and your partner's goals at the same time. And oftentimes when it comes to a long distance relationship, as things start to maybe go downhill a little bit, is oftentimes people can focus on the goal synergy, thinking about, well, what do I want and what do they want? And is this going to work or not? And you end up having conversations that don't provide any real value because you haven't established the emotional safety and the intellectual intimacy before that. So this is where understanding what high value communication is to your partner and making sure that you're starting at the fundamental level of emotional safety before moving through intellectual intimacy and goal synergy is going to be really crucial for making sure that you are building the house on a solid foundation. Ultimately, that is what we are doing here. So this is high value communication. And if you think about the communication that is involved in this and compare it to check-in text messages that don't provide any value, is a massive difference between the two. And that's why in long distance relationships, sending a check-in text or sending texts in general are not really recommended, because you can't really get into any depth, any real value that is beneficial to you or your partner or ex-partner, depending on where your relationship is at right now. So it's really important to understand this. So if you are in a long distance relationship or you're trying to repair a long distance relationship, take the steps to start putting yourself in your partner's shoes and think to yourself, what type of communication would be valuable to me? Let's say your partner is constantly working at this new job and it's taking over their time day in, day out, and they're working hundreds of hours a week, right? Would a check-in text really help? Would it really add anything to their day-to-day? Would jumping in and saying, I miss you so much, I wish you were here with me now, that may feel like the right thing to do, but does it add to their day, or does it put pressure on them to feel like they should be in the same city as you? So start differentiating what is high value communication, what is low value communication. And especially when it comes to low effort check-ins, if you're trying to repair a relationship, just checking in doesn't provide any real nourishment. It's like emotional junk food. This fills the time, but it starves the connection. So being able to build a connection on what is real, on understanding your partner's feelings, and being able to talk vulnerably and openly at the right time is going to be crucial to repairing and building a long distance relationship. So get into the habit of learning how to validate before you end up trying to problem solve. No one opens up to someone who makes them feel misunderstood. So it's about being able to be deliberate with the way that you communicate, not just bombarding with random low value texts that actually fill up your partner's day to day and places an emotional burden on them. Next, it's really important to use this distance to multiply your value. So a lot of people, like we said, see distance as really bad. Distance between you is pulling apart at the connection. We have this idea that all relationships need to end up in marriage, in living together, in constantly living on top of each other 24/7. But the fact is that life is not like that. Life changes and life evolves and grows. It doesn't mean that you can never have that. But if you see distance as something that is bad, that's something that's pulling away from the relationship, then you will end up treating it that way. You will see it that way. It will become a problem. The truth is that the distance is neither good nor bad. You can either see it as a challenge or as an opportunity. I've worked with members who have been in long distance relationships, and long distance can actually be a perfect opportunity to spend your time leveling up, growing yourself massively. So the next time that you communicate with your partner or even ex-partner, it becomes a huge polarization between the last time they spoke with you. There's a huge comparison to the previous times you've spoken. And this is especially crucial when it comes to repairing a relationship, is that if the relationship had been going in the wrong direction and you have very limited times when you do actually speak, what you do in between those times that you speak is going to be really crucial. Let's say the last time you spoke with them was a lot of low value communication, but you've spent 2 months really working on yourself, growing, changing the way you communicate, making your default communication style very, very different. And then when you do have a conversation with them a couple of months later, they will be able to feel the difference in you. They'll be able to feel the difference in the way that you communicate, and they will feel the higher value communication that you've been working on. And this is what a lot of my members have found, is that even when there's been limited opportunity to have conversations, they've still managed to repair the relationship and build it and regrow it because of what they do in between conversations. So distance is not the problem. Wasting the opportunity of a long distance relationship is. this time apart can be your forge. You can upgrade your emotional fitness, your mental clarity, your purpose. You can get so dialed in on your mission and self-work because you have that space to do it. So you can fill that space with something that provides value so that when you do reconnect, they can feel it instantly. They can feel that you've grown. What this does is that it shows that you are constantly building your own self-respect. You're not waiting for your partner to be there for you to grow. You're taking it upon yourself to still work towards the relationship, still build the relationship, despite the fact that you still have limited conversations and limited times to really connect. And again, this still boils down to quality over quantity. This is where you can become the partner that inspires growth, not requires somebody else to grow for them. Specifically when it comes to communication, text messages, this is going to be very specific, but text messages in long distance relationships, text messages are for logistics, not intimacy. If you're trying to rebuild and repair and grow a relationship, if you're navigating these conversations through text message, it's going to cause a lot more problems than it solves. Tone can be very, very difficult to read in text message. If you think about looking at a text, there are many, many different interpretations that can be read into a text because you can't hear the tone in the voice. You can't hear whether it's being sarcastic, whether it's being aggressive, whether it's being sad, mopey. Your partner will not be able to feel the true you, the true intent behind your conversations in text message. So messaging is fine for logistics, but when it comes to having what my members and I call crucial conversations, it's so important to jump on a call or even better video and being able to build that intimacy through actual conversation, not just text messages. This helps you both co-regulate through tone, timing, presence. And this stops you from having this expectation that your partner needs to reply to these low value check-in texts. And it means that you're more deliberate with your communication. You're more deliberate with having conversations and communication that provide value to both of you. And this is especially true when it comes to what we call expectancy bias. I've done a deeper dive video, which I'll link to up above and in the description down below. But expectancy bias is when a relationship has started to fall apart and your partner has this expectation as to the way conversations are going to go, right? So when you're having conversations through text messages, if they're seeing the relationship through even a slightly negative light, their expectancy bias is high. They're expecting you to be sarcastic, even though you don't mean to be. This is where you need to be having conversations through either video or phone calls, not through text messages. If there's a high amount of expectancy bias within the relationship, then your text messages turn into time bombs. The worst thing about it is that because it's in text message, you will not be able to see your partner's reaction to it, right? You're not going to be able to feel how they're feeling from what you've said. And this can cause a lot more damage. So building this emotional safety through crucial conversations is so important. And it has to be done with tone, timing, and presence, being present with your partner so you can actually build that intimacy. Next, when it comes to long distance relationships, get out of this maintenance mode. So stop trying to just make sure that things are okay. Stop trying to keep things at a certain level. You know, a lot of people, when they get into long distance relationships, they get into survival mode. They get into, well, I just need to make sure that everything's okay. And that leaves them in a very needy state, that leaves them in a questioning state of sort of looking for reassurance and being like, oh, is everything okay? Like, I just want to make sure that you're okay and that things are okay and we're okay and, you know, you're free to talk to me. They stay in survival mode, but it means that they avoid having really difficult conversations. It stops them from initiating conversations about future plans, about shared values, about emotional patterns, about things that your partner may be feeling. You end up asking questions rather than leaning into conversations and raising difficult subjects. It's kind of the difference between, let's say you're swimming in the sea. It's the difference between being pulled around by the tide, which is where you're surviving, rather than riding the tide and using that inertia to push you eventually in the right direction. If you're just constantly being pulled around by the tide, it doesn't inspire anything with your partner and they start to get into survival mode. Whereas if you are leaning in to the distance, if you're using that to your advantage, like we said about learning and building your growth, as well as using the distance to raise crucial conversations that are important to your partner and being able to learn how to validate them, That's the difference between survival and thriving, right? So long distance relationships don't survive by accident. They evolve on purpose. This distance, the catalyst to building you closer long term. Ultimately, if you are the person that is inspiring growth, is inspiring a relationship that is worth being in, then your partner will be drawn closer to you emotionally. Like we mentioned, one of the most important steps is stop needing this reassurance. And that segues into the next point, which is to stop needing reassurance, stop building evidence. So if you are in this survival mode, if you're constantly needing constant reassurance, this actually creates the distance. So no matter what the physical distance is, if you're needing reassurance, this starts to build evidence of there being distance between you both, emotional distance. And if you are constantly clinging to needing constant reassurance, this is your body's nervous system way of avoiding uncertainty. You're trying to avoid this uncertain future, right? But the thing is, love and relationships, they're not proven in words alone. It's proven in patterns. So instead of asking, are we okay? This is where you can actively build a relationship where your actions say, we are building something real. Being able to create consistent, value-aligned habits that prove commitment. Your actions and how you show up in the relationship will mean that you don't need to ask for reassurance because you are cultivating a path forward for both of you. This is where you're able to step up and be the partner who takes responsibility for your own sense of security, for example. Don't outsource that sense of security to, your partner's texts. Don't wait for your partner to reassure you that things are okay. Put in the work and the actions that will ensure that you are both okay. Being able to cultivate a strong vision for the relationship, this creates a direction for both of you. And this direction builds trust. It means that during this temporary time of long distance, cultivating this long-term vision for the relationship means that you both have something to work towards. And this temporary distance is only a stepping stone on the road to that goal. And ultimately, most of all, cultivating your self-regulation is better than co-regulation. And obviously, because it's YouTube, there's only so much that I can dive into this. But if you do want a deeper dive and to start learning the fundamentals of understanding how to repair and rebuild a relationship, then join my relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same steps and tools that all of my members start with to start repairing, regrowing, and rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. Just click on the link in the description to grab your spot. Ultimately, building self-regulation is better than leaning on co-regulation. So if you need your partner to calm you down every time you feel anxious or insecure, you're not in a relationship, you're in emotional dependency. If you are reliant on your partner to manage your emotions, then this is where you need to take the control back into your hands and learn how to survive and thrive in a world where a lot of stuff is going to happen, right? A lot of challenging situations are going to come up. And this is where you need to learn how to thrive in these situations. And that all starts with learning how to manage your own emotions, not relying on your partner to navigate them for you. Learning to observe your emotional state without acting on it, learning to observe the fact that you feel angry without lashing out, without judging your partner because you're angry. Building your tool set in order to push through difficult situations and not be pulled around by the tide again. This means that the more you build these emotional tool sets, you can come to your partner from a place of choice, being able to choose to act in an appropriate, effective way to rebuild a relationship, not panic. You're not jumping to conclusions. You're not making assumptions. You're not letting your emotions pull you around during this long distance relationship. You are not your triggers. You are your response to them. So this is where the most important step is learning to build yourself to be so solid that you don't need the relationship, but you choose it anyway. And this is the ultimate flex. You building yourself so strong, so emotionally fit, so centered in your mission that the relationship is not your lifeline. This is not the be all and end all, but it is something that you're choosing to be in. And this means that when you're coming from such a place of emotional strength, this is not you versus your partner. It becomes you and your partner versus the problem. You and your partner versus the long distance. You and your partner versus the difficulties that you're both facing. And this means that you stop seeing your partner as the enemy and you start seeing your partner as a chosen teammate. And this means that you're able to cultivate a much stronger relationship despite there being distance between you at this moment in time. And this is especially crucial when it comes to repairing a relationship and your partner has maybe temporarily lost faith in the relationship. This is about your ability to step up and be able to inspire that faith in the relationship regardless of this temporary feeling that they're feeling right now. And this is learning how to lean in to all of these difficult situations. You know, like I said, a lot of my members realize that these, what we call discords, these points of connection, they can either be seen as something that pulls you apart or something that brings you together. And it's your choice on how you deal with it. I've actually done a deeper dive video onto this on understanding how relationship problems work and how your perspective on them is going to change the way that you deal with them. If you approach them in the right way, these can build a relationship 20 times stronger than any other relationship that you know. But you've got to know how to understand and how to approach these relationship discords. So I'm going to leave you with that deep dive video, and I will see you over there.